Acapulco, Mexico. This is Anarchast.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Anarchast, your home for anarchy on the internet. I'm here in Acapulco, Mexico with all the dogs, and Lauren Southern as well.
I'm so excited about all these dogs.
Yeah, it's good to see you. One of the reasons it's good to see you is because I think there's a lot of misperceptions out there about you, and
just a few.
Yeah, just a few. And we talked about this the other night, that it seems like my audience in general, not everybody, but a lot of them really dislike you, and your audience...
Vice versa, that's for sure.
Right. And I don't think, it's funny because we're pretty good friends. We don't fight or anything. So why are the people who like our work kind of hate us? I'm not sure.
I don't understand it, but yeah, there's like so much vitriol on both ends. Like, my audience, why are you hanging out with this sleazebag, horrible person, Jeff Berwick? And then your guys, why are you hanging out with this Nazi? And like, I know you in person. I don't know, maybe it's because I don't think we follow our stuff online as closely as we just follow our friendship. I've really met you offline in person, and you've always been a kind person to me, to the people around us. So when people say sleazebag on the internet, I don't know, it could be the same news they're getting about me apparently shooting torpedoes at refugee boats, right? So I just know you, the person, Jeff Berwick, and I guess you know me, the person, Lauren Southern, and that's one of the biggest problems with the internet is it screens. You don't get to really know all the dimensions of an individual.
Yeah, absolutely, and definitely YouTube comments are not like the best source of information about what kind of person someone on YouTube might be. And yeah, I've seen that so many times. But really getting down to it, like a lot of the, we're here in Anarchapulco. You came last year to Anarchapulco, and a lot of people are like, well, she's not an anarchist because of some of the things she's doing. And actually, I'm not totally sure myself exactly what you would call yourself. And I think to start off, like, because you kind of have like a lot of the alt-right sort of followers as well, right? But you don't necessarily call yourself alt-right, right?
No, I mean, it's gotten to a point where I don't know if any of these labels fit me, because at the beginning of the election, alt-right meant like this new kind of right wing that rejected neocons. And I was like, yeah, anti-establishment, bring it back to the real right wing that wants smaller government, more nationalist policies. But then that just spiraled out of control and became the whole Charlottesville kind of situation, where it's like you have genuine people that I wouldn't say necessarily Nazis, but certainly white nationalists that are focused on white racial politics. And then you have like the regular conservatives, who I definitely don't identify with. I mean, I'm not a fan of what conservatism has become. It's not really conserving anything except their votes and election kind of hopes. And then there's libertarians, who the party has really spiraled out of control, and anarchists, who I appreciate and love, and I love the philosophy, but the problem with all these groups is I'm stuck between this pragmatism and the philosophies that I love, which are libertarianism and anarchy. I find them to be the most moral philosophies, non-aggression principle. I don't see really good arguments against it when it comes to, like, when you're just looking at the books. Right? I don't see a reason why the government should be able to take half my income. I don't see a good reason for that at all. And if I could stop that from happening and get rid of the government totally, that's what I would want. However, I'm living in this world where you need
Lucy,
to attack the dogs for me, or the bugs for me, Lucy.
Yeah. Lucy was eating bees the other day, like a bunch of them.
Yeah, it was puking them up. Yeah, I'm living in this world where I want the most change I can make for a smaller government in a pragmatic view, though. And I don't think just checking out and saying anarchy or nothing works. And I know that's why you don't call me an anarchist, is because I say stop immigration into welfare states, it'll shrink the state, and you say it's an aggression against the immigrants. So
right. Yeah. But I'm very open-minded. I'm a very non-confrontational sort of a person in general, except for when it comes to the government. And I do like more to get along rather than to separate ourselves just based on little things. Like if we have most of the same philosophy, but we have some disagreements on certain things, I'm fairly cool with like letting that slide quite a bit. Because I don't know if exactly my way that I do things is exactly the perfect way. Actually, I don't know that. I have no idea if that's the right way. And then there's people like Walter Block, who we both know. I believe you know him, right?
Yeah, he's a very nice guy.
And he kind of talks a lot about things that you talk about. So, for example, you kind of wore the Trump hat a few times, and I think in general, you're kind of saying Trump's better than Clinton. And I think a lot of people would agree with that. But my take on it is you don't want to support any of these. The whole thing is evil. You don't want to get involved with it. But even a person like Walter Block, who's very respected amongst a lot of anarchists, not all anarchists, but a lot of them, he says the same thing. He's like, well, if it comes down to Trump or Hillary, I hope it's Trump. And so what's your take on that? Like, as far as like, do you actually support Trump, for example?
Well, during the election, just the prospect of having someone that would tear apart the establishment and drain the swamp was unreal. It truly showed what America wanted, and they wanted an uprooting of this corrupt, sick system that they have. And they can all see it. They can all see it has a sickness. Even the left, like, they didn't want Hillary as well. They wanted Bernie. They were just like anything else than these dynasty families that have been in and obviously corrupting what America was supposed to be. So Trump was more of an idea that sparked a movement of people than the individual himself. Of course, you have the sycophants who just are fans of Trump like he's a sports team, but there are the people that are like myself that truly saw it as a movement of ideas. And those are the people that you'll see today that are willing to criticize Trump when he strikes Syria, because they said, no, this isn't what we hoped for. We wanted someone who said he wasn't going to go back into the Middle East, which Trump did say many times. He agreed with Ron Paul. He said that it was stupid and a waste of money when Obama was going into the Middle East again. So it's been very disappointing to see some of Trump's actions lately, for sure, sending troops in Afghanistan, striking Syria. And the people who believed in the ideas will criticize Trump on that, but then of course you have the sycophants that just support him no matter what. So my opinion on the whole Trump issue is it was an idea that I hope still resonates with people, but I am seeing it start to fade away, and that glimmer of hope is going away. I'm still supporting him because of how much he still pisses off the mainstream media, and he seems to piss off all the right people, but there's certainly seems to be a co-opting of Trumpism that has happened, and whether it be the deep state or the neocons that have kind of stolen the show from Trump, there's certainly something going on in the White House right now.
Yeah, my view is it was all planned from the beginning. He's a dynasty family it's quite hard to become a billionaire in the U.S. without having certain connections. He was trained as a Jesuit, which is one of the top secret societies. Not a lot of people know this. He was best friends with the Clintons for years. So I was of the opinion that he really wasn't. He was saying those things to just get, elected, get the people all riled up and stuff like that. But I could be wrong on that as well. Mm-hmm. Now, you started off sort of like your main sort of focus when you first started, what you do, since you sort of gotten out of school, you're still a young woman, was mostly focused against feminism. Yeah. But you've now moved on to a number of other things, and one of them seems to be sort of anti-Islam sort of things. And as well, and here's the real thing where you really, I think, got a lot of the anarchists upset was when you were off the coast of Europe somewhere on a boat trying to stop immigrants from getting to Europe from Africa. And a lot of anarchists were like, I don't see how this can possibly be anarchist, what you did. But why don't you just explain a little bit about, like, why are you doing these things? And what are your beliefs? And what are the main things that you're focused on right now?
Right. So the biggest thing, I've been focusing on immigration a lot, obviously. And the big reason I focus on that is I truly believe we are losing Western society and Western culture, which I do believe has created the most free society that we've seen in most of the world anyway. At the beginning of it, it's slowly fading away as democracy does, and people can vote themselves, bigger and bigger governments. But a lot of that happening with voting bigger and bigger governments is specifically because of mass immigration. People come into the country with very little and also with very few of the same ideas as the people originally living there. If someone from a communist country, for example, moves to Poland, they're going to want more communist policies, whereas the Poles have fought hard against communism, so they are obviously more so against it. I also think that there is a planned mass migration happening through the government, and the European Union wants to get rid of the national identity of countries within Europe so that they can have an excuse for a superstate. Yep. And so they're allowing a lot of this mass immigration to happen, and they're bringing in all these policies and trying to force places like Hungary and Poland to bring in more and more migrants so that they slowly lose their identity. And if a country no longer has its identity, well, the EU, Daddy EU will come in and they'll be your identity. They'll be your country. When you get rid of community that helps each other, you don't have a need for a government during a hurricane if the community bands together and helps each other and gets food together. If no one talks to each other, if you don't speak the same language, if there's animosity between you because of cultural differences, you're going to go straight to the government because there's going to be no one else. So I think this destruction of community and family and everything through the government is trying to distance itself further and further from home and make us need this overlord of government.
No, absolutely. I agree with you. And I even said that with Chris Cantwell, who I don't know if you want to comment on or not, but I was like, it's kind of funny because I agree with a lot of his views on what's actually going on in the world, because he was sort of saying the same thing, that they're bringing in all these people and, we have to stop them from doing this because, and the reason why they're doing it, I agree with. They're trying to destroy society, trying to destroy the family, trying to destroy culture, so it's much easier to control the people and get them all under sort of a one world government sort of a thing. But the question is how, like, if we both agree that's what's going on and we think that it's not a good thing, what to be done about it? And of course, sort of the true voluntarist angle on it would be, well, you can't aggress against others. And so what you were doing there with in the ship, trying to block some people from going from Africa to the Europe, no matter what the reason is they were going, if you were trying to stop them, you really don't have any right to stop them from a voluntarist angle. What would you say to that? Like
Fair, and I'd say that's our fundamental disagreement.
Yes, right.
Is
So
I'm willing to break that to defend. I'd rather defend my freedom and as much as possible, rather than give it all up simply because I want to subscribe to this kind of book club purity, which I respect. I respect that you do subscribe to that purity, but I can't do it because I have hopes of having a family and a future for Western society, my language, my culture, all these things. I want to see that progress, and I would give up a little bit of my purity to do that. And not only that, I would say that there is a reasonable excuse as well in the form of these people are coming over and they are aggressing you in a sense because they're coming into your nations to take your money that the government has stolen and is redistributing to them. They're taking your welfare, education, all of these different things that the government essentially started with a contract saying, you give us a bit of money, we'll take care of you. Of course, it ended up being bullcrap, and they ended up giving it out as handouts to the world and increasing that. But now, all the money that was supposed to be for your children, your nation, your schools, is going to the whole world, and it's become so generous with strangers it is no longer sustainable for our own nations. So protecting that is, a sense, your goods still, even though they've been stolen by the government.
Yeah, that's another point of contention because once, just because there's this horrible criminal organization called government that's stealing from everybody, doesn't necessarily give you the right to go and aggress against others because of it, right? I'm just trying to think this through a little bit. Like you brought up one point, you said a little bit, this is a book club. What I'm doing is not a book club. What I'm doing, from my opinion, is helping develop the market in such ways, which includes things like cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, to destroy governments and central banks to get rid of them. So there is no welfare state, there's nothing. And we can go back to people living in their societies without this big overlord controlling and enslaving people.
That's a pragmatic thing I agree with as well. I'm a big fan of cryptocurrencies, and I see them as a way.
It's not pragmatic because I'm actually doing exactly what I believe, right?
Well,
so I'm not breaking
that's one of the things where
my...
you're not. It is pragmatic because it works, but it's also purist, which is a very rare situation and a very cool situation. But that's unfortunately, I don't see that as the only thing. Maybe it will be. I could be wrong. That could be the caveat that takes us away from mass control of the state. However, I do think that these cultural issues are not going away. And even if you get a fully free society that's running on Bitcoin, that has its total free markets, if enough people come from a statist society, you're just going to have a Mick caliphate. You're just going to have your McDonald's only serving halal, and you'll still be whipped on the street by people who don't believe in the non-aggression principle
because
not necessarily. You decided to drink on a holy day.
This is one thing that we've never talked about before either on this program. Like some people will say, well, all these N.A.P guys are idiots because some people don't believe in the N.A.P. I know that. That's why I got tons of guns. That's why I want the free market. That's why I want private security to be able to function all over the place so that people can protect themselves.
Right, but the fear is if you're the minority. Because if you have a lot of people who also believe in the N.A.P. and have guns, yeah, you have these people try to come in and enforce their caliphate and enforce Sharia law. They're not going to have a good time because you're going to have a freedom-loving culture, and there will be a gun behind every meter of land they try to go to and enforce their caliphate. Right. But if we get to a point in Europe where we are getting to, where the Muslim birth rates are so much higher than the native European birth rates, and their culture is so much stronger, where you have whole towns like Marxlow that have just been taken over and it's just Turkish flags all over the place, there's not going to be a gun beside you to protect you. You're going to be standing alone.
Yeah, and from an anarchist perspective, I would just leave that place. I wouldn't start killing Muslim people to stop it. Right?
Well, no, I wouldn't agree with killing people either. That's why the solution isn't just fire your guns. Of course, if you're attacked, you fire back. But the solution now is to stop people with, I'd say, very statist ideas from coming into your country in the first place and trying to create a bigger government and a more oppressive society. That's my fear always. If we just make things totally anarchist, what happens when Russia or China or some bigger power that wants to enforce an even stronger state comes in and says, we want that land, we want that to be ours? It's nice and dandy to say, we'll defend it. There'll be people with a gun everywhere, but if you have enough liberals, enough immigration come in, they just say, I accept our new overlord, because enough people support government right now. Anarchism is a wonderful idea, but it's unfortunately a very rare one among people. Yeah, it's growing. Absolutely. I don't deny you guys have done a good job growing your anti-state ideology, but it's still rare among people.
Oh, no, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. It's just, it comes down to, like, what do you do about these sort of things, I suppose, right? And you've taken the sort of angle that you're going to, was what you did in that boat, was that a one-off sort of thing? Or are you going to continue to do those sort of things?
Well, I supported their mission to continue, and what they did is they continued to patrol the coast, and they found out that a lot of what was going on with the Italian government actually finally released it after they had some pressure from the media, but they found out that these NGOs were colluding with human traffickers to bring people over, and they were kind of getting paid and making deals to bring people over. And this is also what worries me, is you have these private crony corporations that are funding a lot of this cultural destruction. And
George Soros.
Yes, George Soros is funding a lot of that stuff. And what do you do about that?
It's a really tough question. That's why I don't like to get too carried away of demonizing anyone who's trying to find the solution, and you're trying to find it, and then you're breaking what would be the N.A.P in that instance, and so I can't support you for that reason. But I don't necessarily need to hate you for it either, right? And that's I think that's sort of what the powers that be really want, right? They want us to all to be at each other's throats, and they're doing all this stuff. Like you just pointed out, it's George Soros doing it on this side, it's the Clintons on this side, it's Trump doing it, and they're all doing all this stuff to make us all fight each other and hate each other and all that kind of stuff. And so we really need to find, or at least not demonize each other, right? Mm-hmm. So say, well, Lauren did that one thing one time which is against one of my principles, therefore I hate her, I hope she dies, and all this sort of stuff that people put in the YouTube comments, right? I think we, at least at our level of sort of relationships, need to be more open to, being okay with, okay, I disagree with that, but it doesn't mean that I hate you or anything like that. And who knows, maybe what you're doing maybe will have some effect that will work out to the betterment of freedom in general. Mm-hmm. I doubt it. I just don't see any like the ways that I see freedom coming about are market-based, creating new solutions that make the old systems obsolete, like cryptocurrencies and things like that, and private security and things like Cell 411 app for your phone, and things like Uber and all those sort of things, although those aren't fully anarchist, but like just creating new things that make the old system obsolete, right? And I think that's really the best way forward, but I'm open to other ways of doing things. So for you,
I do want to quickly mention something.
Sure.
I really want to reiterate that although I still identify mostly with pragmatism when it comes to trying to secure more freedom through my actions, I do see the value of having people who remind others of the core of an ideology, because you have something like modern conservatism, for example, what is conservatism anymore? It has become so pragmatic within Western governments that you can't call any of the conservative parties conservative. They're liberals. What they are today is what liberals were 20 years ago. So there is value. While I am pragmatic, there is totally value to holding to what the purity of these principles are and constantly reminding people where your base is. Otherwise, people will get carried away and forget about it and go totally pragmatist to the point where they've lost themselves and their ideology.
Yeah, absolutely. So it is tricky times, and it is interesting. So I saw you put out a video the other day, and it got a lot of people kind of upset. It was.
I usually do that.
Yeah, you do. She is very polarizing. I don't know if it's on purpose or not, but you really are. And the video when I first saw it was called, what was it about the Libertarians? But you changed the name?
It started as the problem with libertarianism, but I changed it to the problem with libertarians.
Right,
because,
so when I saw it, just to cut you off briefly, I was like, oh, so she's against libertarianism now? And I also noticed that when you talk about libertarianism, you more talk about the Libertarian Party.
Right.
Because to me, there's big L and little l. I don't know if you know about that, but like the big L is the Libertarian Party. Libertarianism is this sort of big term, which kind of can encompass, to me, libertarianism has to be anarchy, because if the word libertarianism means that your biggest sort of principle, your biggest sort of passion about life that is necessary for life is liberty, right? That's what a libertarian is. If that's the case, then you have to be an anarchist, right? Because you know the government, and no matter how small it is a use of force against people. It's extorting people and using violence against people to make them do what you want. That's not libertarian. So when I first saw it, I was like, oh, are you attacking libertarians as a whole now? But it turned out that you really weren't. You're more attacking sort of a lot of the people that you saw that are kind of in semi-libertarian, and I don't think Reason.com or whatever they are, Reason Magazine, they have nothing. I've never seen anything that I was like, oh, I totally believe in what they're talking about. So I don't even know what they are, actually.
But they're like the big representatives. So yeah,
Are
what
they?
I was
See, I don't
attacking,
even know
that's why I
that.
changed the name to the problem with libertarians, because I do agree with the ideology itself. It's a very sound ideology, but the people who have taken it and made it their label, and they are the leaders of it in America. They're creating all of the think tanks, all of the papers about it. Oh man, they have some problems that need to be talked about. And Reason is just the tip of the iceberg. Of course, they're a big tip of the iceberg. Koch brother funded kind of shills for crony capitalism that will just say anything they need to say to keep their popularity and keep the right people they want in power. And their ideology just makes no sense to me. When you read the stuff by Reason, there was a woman who just came out, and she's a writer for Reason, and she was tweeting at guys that libertarian men needed to stop tweeting aggressive memes because they need to make libertarianism safer for women. So you've got, I don't know if you've ever heard of Atheism Plus.
No.
So atheism was a huge movement on YouTube, and everyone was just talking about this ideology of atheism. But what happened to it is all of these far leftist ideologues that just loved feminism and Marxism took over atheism and said, you can't just be an atheist. You have to be an atheist and a feminist. You have to be an atheist and a vegan. You have to be an atheist and an environmentalist. Otherwise, you're not this. That kind of happened to libertarianism, where they said, you can't just be a libertarian. You have to be a libertarian and anti-racist and feminist and all of this. And that is what has taken over mainstream libertarianism. It's kind of this left-wing Marxist co-opting of the mainstream movement. And I had a lot of critiques of that, but also of some of the people that I feel do the book club thing, where they just kind of argue on their Facebook groups all day. What was it? There's this really entertaining meme I saw, and it's a pie graph of what do libertarians do on the internet, and it's like argue with people on Facebook, 50% of the pie graph or something, talk about the N.A.P, get mad at you about taxes, and then like there's a small sliver that said leaving people alone. So there is this part that I do have frustration with some libertarians that only kind of do the book club stuff, and I'd like to see more pragmatism from a lot of them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's one thing that I've sort of been saying more and more lately, is there's too many sort of anarchists out there that just read the books and talk about it online and don't do anything out there in life. And that's really what you got to do. You got to get out there and get out there, get out of your basements. You know, I'm not, obviously, not against my audience here, and it's not my whole audience, but there's definitely a fair amount of just sort of not doing much, and then criticizing others who are trying to do things as well, which, you know, if you're not going to do anything, you really have no right to criticize others who are trying to do things. One thing I want to catch, and I see we're running out a little bit of time on the camera there, so we don't have too much time left, but I do want to ask you this, because you do get accused of it a lot, of being a racist, of being a Nazi, of being a white supremacist. What's your response to that?
I don't think anyone has proof of any of those things. I've gotten to a point where I probably should care, and I probably should put up defenses, but if people are going to call me something so unfounded without any proof, I get to this point where I no longer care about their opinion. I no longer care if you think I'm a Nazi, because why would I care about the opinion of someone who just screams out the most offensive, especially certainly in Western culture, offensive thing they can think of at someone with zero proof at all? Clearly, you are an intellectual imbecile. You have like no real value to your opinions. So People can throw piss at me on the streets, they can scream all they want at me, but I have a very select few people whose opinions I really respect, and those are the people that are kind to me, that give thoughtful, decent arguments. The times I'm really hurt are when people have put through a genuine criticism of me. They can be a random person on the internet, but if it is genuine and well-structured and kind, and it really gets me on something that I'm wrong about, those are the opinions that really hit home, and I try to change myself because of those. So these people that just call Nazi, racist, whatever, show me some proof, and fine. I'll take that label, but I don't think you have any proof. I don't think anyone can find proof that I'm a racist.
Where does those sort of things even come from? Is there some things you've done that can appear that way, or?
I think why people would call me a white supremacist, racist, or all these things is simply because I've defended white identity groups, like Generation Identity, but I am still trying to understand that aspect of theirs, and them trying to defend their identity as we want Germany to remain a majority German. I don't think that's a particularly offensive idea, and I think it could apply to we want Japan to remain majority Japanese. So I don't think that's a particularly racist or offensive idea, but I think that's what people would apply to me being racist, simply because I've supported this group before, or because I've been anti-Black Lives Matter and such, which is absolutely ridiculous, because Black Lives Matter does not represent all blacks, and I think there are blacks who will find that would be very offended to be represented by that group or even associated with it. So it's an amalgamation of different reasons and excuses people would make, but all of them I think are insufficient to really give me a label like that.
The one thing that I've known from hanging out with you a little bit is that you seem to give a fair amount of, not credence or credibility, I'm looking for a different word, but you think basically that a homogenous society is a good thing. Like you think a society that has a lot of things in common, a culture, that's a good thing. And so a big part of what you've been trying to do is trying to stop them from destroying the homogeneity of a lot of places, and it turns out that a lot of them are white places and Western sort of countries. But
well, I speak English, so I tend to be in those places often, but I totally believe in that for other cultures as well and other groups as well. I obviously hold Western society higher because it's not higher than other cultures. Well, I do think it's the best, but simply because of the policies it's come out with. And there have been different races and groups that have built up Western society as well. But my family is in it, my language is here, my culture is here. That's why I focus on it. But when it comes to other groups wanting to hold on to their culture and their language and their society, I 100% support that as well, and hope they do that successfully, because that homogeneity and being able to communicate and have a sense of identity and purpose within your society is very important, and keeps you from feeling you need this big daddy government to give you an idea of what your life is, because your community gives you that.
Yeah, I think that's part of where some of this comes from, you being called a Nazi or things like that, is because you're trying to say that you'd like to see certain places not be destroyed by all these forced immigration that's going to destroy the culture.
I don't think it's wrong of me to want to walk down the street and be able to have a conversation with everyone around me. I don't think that's wrong. And it doesn't matter what the color of your skin is. It really doesn't to me. But if you can't speak my language and you think I should be wearing a burqa because I'm a woman, well, we're not going to be able to talk or have a happy life in the same area. I don't think it's wrong of me to want to be able to go over to my neighbor's house and help each other during a hurricane or a disaster or anything. I don't think that's wrong at all, and I think it's very sad that some people do think that's wrong and think that we need to be in these totally mixed communities where no one can talk and there really mini segregation going on, and the only person we can look to for help is government because we've all been so split up.
Well, I think the only thing that a true anarchist would challenge you on is not using force to make sure that places stay homogenous, right?
Well, really, force has been a large part of why a lot of this immigration is happening. Governments either oppressing the people in their own homes and causing them to flee, or governments causing the importation of these people.
So in a way, you're saying it's self-defense, right? So you're saying you're going to use a bit of force back because that's what they're using against
That's
you.
what I would say, certainly in the Defend Europe mission example. But just in general, I think anarchists could say a lot of this immigration and forced kind of mixing of cultures, clash of cultures and civilizations has been caused by corrupt governments and governments' forced importation or crony capitalists' importation.
And protected by, they're protected by the governments as well, right? Like what happened in Italy. So yeah, that brings up an interesting point. So let's talk about this in the comments down below. You know, anarchists believe in self-defense, and so what Lauren's saying is that she believes this is a form of self-defense from what the governments are doing, and the crony capitalists are working with the governments. They're using extortion, taxation, violence, the guns of government to stop people from stopping these things from happening, to make these things happen. So what I guess Lauren's saying is she's bending some of the N.A.P back because it's self-defense. Is that correct?
That's fair enough, yeah.
Okay.
I'd be interested to see what people say. But
Yeah, no, we're both sort of open, I think, to understanding, you know, maybe you're a little bit wrong on one point, then maybe you're open to changing that. If I'm wrong on certain things, I'm totally open to changing that. People know that over the years. I change all the time. And one of the reasons I wanted to have you on, one of the reasons is you are here in Acapulco anyway, but also you were at Anarchapulco last year. You'll be coming back again this year in 2018 to actually debate Larken Rose on borders. So
yes, I'm very excited for that.
yeah, and I have to tell people, you're a very brave woman, and I knew that already from hanging out with you with your helmet at Berkeley and stuff like that. She really is not a scared person. That I just asked her, would you be open to debating Larken Rose, who's a pretty smart mind in the anarchist world, about borders? And you answered it like within a second, yes, no problem. So very, very good of you. And you're going to be in front of a tough audience who's not going to be all on your side.
No.
And most of them won't be on your side. But I think it's important. And so I got a lot of flack myself. Well, why are you having Lauren? You had her last year. We're going to have her back. She's a Nazi. We talked about that. She's not a Nazi. She's not a white supremacist. She's not a whatever the other ones were. She believes the anarchist philosophy is beautiful. She thinks it's the best way that we could be. However, she sees that we might have to do some pragmatic things. I think some of those things have crossed the line as far as anarchy goes, but I'm not necessarily going to hate you for it or anything like that. And I'm going to see what happens. And I think it's good to have people like yourself there. And I think we got to challenge ourselves as well, right? You've thrown down the gauntlet a little bit. This is a book club. You know, like I'm out there doing stuff. What are you guys doing? Hey, if you're not doing anything, you can't really criticize her all that much. If you're not doing anything at all, you know what I'm saying? So I think it's great. I'm glad to have you on. Is there anything that we didn't cover that you wanted to mention that we didn't get to?
Just one thing. I think your anarchy is a beautiful ideology, but you got to get rid of these anarcho-commies. I don't know what they are, but they're running around in the street with your flag. You guys got to sort that situation out.
Well, that has
they're ruining your name.
I know. This is a whole other topic. This is one thing that I wanted to get across to you, because you used to call them anarchists in the past, when it was basically these anarcho-commies who aren't even anarchists, really, in my opinion. They're basically just commies. And that's what we're seeing with all these things. They're just, all these labels are just being ruined, as you say.
Co-opted and changed. It's confusing. Keeping people very confused.
They want that. And that's why a lot of people say, let's just start using the word voluntarist, because that's very hard to contort. However, the word truther has been turned into a derogatory term when all you're trying to do is find out the truth. So if they want to spin it and make something, they'll make it so voluntarism sounds like the worst thing in the world if that starts catching on as a word. So, but so those aren't, you've seen them and you've been to Anarchapulco. The people who come to Anarchapulco are not the kind of people who are coming up and jumping piss on you and breaking windows.
No, they're very nice
stuff,
people.
Right?
Even if they boo me because they disagree with me, they're still
booing is not
they're still
N.A.P aggression.
Yeah, exactly. It's a N.A.P aggression against my safe space. This is what's going to happen when you have Anarchy Plus come in. You got to watch it.
Oh man, it never ends, does it? So yeah, it's great to have you on. You do have a different angle on things, and you've got a large audience yourself. So that's why I think it's really important that we as anarchists don't just throw her, off the edge of the cliff just because maybe there's one or two things. Like, I think if we can work with people and that's why I had Milo actually the year before you come. Is like, let's see if we can work with him. I didn't find him so much that we could work with because I think he's kind of like, I don't think
he's a nice guy.
I don't think he's very principled is the thing, right? So like he says, I support the military because I like guys in uniforms. It's like, okay, but we're talking some serious stuff here. People are getting killed, like what's your principles? And he's like, blah, blah, blah. Whereas I find you to be much more philosophical, much more ideological, much more thinking person. That's what I find.
I try. I appreciate that.
So it's good to have you on, and I've explained why. I think it's good to have you back in Anarchapulco 2018, and we'll see what happens. We'll just go from there. So really appreciate you coming.
I'm very excited.
Great.
Thank you for having me. I got to get back to these dogs.
Yeah, we've got all the dogs here.
They're
all waiting for us to They're waiting for us to. So yeah, we'll play the promo for Anarchapulco right after this video. But if you like this video, please like, subscribe, share down below. I know there's going to be so much hate and all the Lawrence crowd's going to come in. Even though we just had a totally decent conversation, there's no punching, there's no hate at all. Your faction are going to come on and hate me, and my faction are going to hate you. Stop it. Just get out of here. We have to relax. We have to find common ground in certain areas wherever we can, because they're trying to separate us in every way possible right now. So everyone relax, take it easy, and let's just, try to push forward freedom as much as we can in any way we can, even if some of them might be bending the rules a little bit. I'm open to, you do it. Basically, I'm an anarchist. I'm the kind of anarchist. I'm like, you do whatever you want. It's fine. And as long as you're not in my place breaking stuff and forcing your ideas on my family, I'm like, whatever. That's do what you want to do. So anyway, if you like this video, please like, subscribe, share down below. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of views on this one. So we'll see what the comments down below are. It's going to be nuts. There's going to be a lot of idiots down there, but I'm used to that and you're used to that. So don't worry, you can't hurt our feelings anymore, I don't think, can you, at this point?
No, absolutely
Yeah,
not.
that's one thing you learned about YouTube is if you can't handle the YouTube comments, get off YouTube. So that's it for Anarchast, your hope for anarchy on the internet. Peace, love, and anarchy.
In a world where Antifa riots in the city streets, cops rage out of control, and the leader of the free world is a fat-ass casino owner, one event stands alone to make anarchy great again.
I actually love humanity. That is why I'm an anarchist. Fuck the banks, fuck drone strikes, fuck tanks, fuck hunger, fuck war, fuck ignoring of the poor, fuck the left, fuck the right, fuck the government. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.